Hello everyone. In this presentation, we will explore the Django For Tag, which is a powerful tool for iterating through collections of data in our templates. We will delve into its syntax and variables with examples. So, in this presentation, the contents we are going to discuss are introduction to for tag and introduction to the for tag, what are the variables used in it, and in that we will discuss for loop dot counter, in with the parameter, for loop dot first and for loop dot last, and lastly we'll conclude. Now let's see what is the purpose of using for tag. For tag is used for iterating over a sequence, like looping over items in an array or a list or a dictionary. So, for example, looping through items of a list. So, here is the list provided of fruits with containing three items: apple, banana, and cherry. So, here is the syntax how the for tag is used. For x in fruit, so here x is the element which loops through each of the items in a list, that is apple, banana and cherry. And here the each of the item is displayed in the H1 tag, that is of 34 pixels. So here the expected output is apple, banana and cherry. So here the font size will be 34. Next is for loop variables. In Django, we have some variables that are available inside a loop that we can use inside the for loop. So some of that are for loop counter with parenthesis, for loop dot first, for loop dot last, for loop dot parent loop, for loop dot reverse counter, for loop dot reverse counter with parenthesis. In this, we will look into the for loop dot counter with parenthesis, for loop dot first and for loop dot last. Firstly, we will see on for loop dot counter. The current iteration starting at 1, which means here the for loop dot counter, it gives the index value starting from 1. So here is the syntax how we can use the for loop dot counter. Initially, we are creating the unordered list. In that, we are creating the loop for x in fruits, as we have provided the simple example for executing the items in a list. Like that, we are using the for loop here for x in fruits. Then we are listing in an unordered list means it will be provided as bullets. So for loop dot counter, in that giving a the variable, providing that variable, which results in the index values. For that, apple, banana and cherry it will be provided as 1, 2, 3 in that bullet points. Next is for loop dot counter. The current iteration starting at 0, which means it gives the indexing value starting from 0. So let's see the example. Here also we are creating the unordered list. In that, for loop iterations we are giving for x in fruits, and that we are providing the for loop dot counter variable. This results in the uh, indexing values of that list, that for apple, banana and cherry starting from 0, as it is an unordered list, so the output will be in the form of bullets. Next is for loop dot first. This allows us to test if the loop is on its first iteration or not. For example, draw a blue background for the first iteration of the loop, which means if the iteration is on the first item of the loop, then the blue background will be appeared. Here is the syntax how we can use for this for loop dot first variable. So initially we have created the unordered list, that is appearing the list in the form of bullet points. with bullet points. Next, for loop is created for x in fruits. Next, list listing the items. If the list in that list item first item is appeared, that is if for loop dot first, then style is equals to. Next is for loop dot last. As we have seen in the for loop dot first, which allows us to test whether the iteration is going, that loop is on the first iteration or not. Here in this we will test whether the loop is on its last iteration or not. For example, draw a blue background for the last iteration of the loop. Means we are if the loop is on the last iteration, then the blue background is drawn. So here is the syntax how we can use this for loop dot last variable. Initially we are creating the unordered list, then for loop, that is for x in fruits. Then in that we will list the items. If the in that list we will check if for loop dot last, which means for each item it will check whether the iteration is going on at the last, then it will give the. From this presentation we conclude that Django For Tag is a versatile tool for iterating through sequences in templates. It simplifies data display and enhances code maintainability. We have explored basic syntax, looping through lists, and using some of the variables within loops. So this was all about the for tags discussed in this presentation. Thank you.